Hello and welcome to the Romance Track here at ConTinual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. And tonight we are talking about paranormal romance. But before we dive into that wonderful topic, let me have my amazing panelists introduce themselves, starting with Ginny.
Hi, I'm Jeanne Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Dog Books, and I write under a variety of pen names and in every length and every genre, including paranormal romance.
All right, and BL.
Hi, I'm BL Maxwell. I just released actually the latest book in my Valley Ghost series. So I have a couple of books that are ghost related and a little bit of other paranormal too. So kind of a variety.
Very nice. Jeannie?
Hi, Jeannie Adams, and I write paranormal romantic suspense, mostly featuring witches, but also some ghosts thrown in there for good measure.
Everything's better with ghosts. At least I fervently believe that. Patricia.
I am Patricia Logan. I've just written the 5th book, which is the last book in my Prosper Woods Chronicles series. It's my first paranormal series, so it's been really fun. It's also the first series I've ever written in first person and the first series I've ever written seat of the pants with absolutely no outlines, which is completely amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, and more with a whole lot of ghosts and monsters. And as Morgan Bryce, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance with a whole lot of ghosts and monsters, because everything's better with a few ghosts, a couple of haunted objects, maybe a vampire or two. You know, it just adds spice to life.
Exactly.
So, why romance? What got you into writing romance? Starting with you, BL.
I read a lot. Well, I read a lot of paranormal, but most of it kind of bleeds into romance. And I like that as the kind of side story. You know what I mean? I like where they're put in this really weird situation and it's like, oh, well, this could happen too, you know, besides us surviving this crazy experience, maybe we like each other too. So it's what I read and I just like that train.
Okay, Jeannie?
Which one?
Jeannie or Ginny?
I got my start in romance mostly, I think, because I don't think there's any bigger cauldron of conflict than romance. And if you throw the uncertainty of paranormal elements in there, that just makes it a much better stew. And so I think it's so much fun and so connected to people to write romance, because everybody's had a romance at some point, or is in one, or is looking for one. So it's just fun.
Nice. Patricia?
Gosh, I mean, I've been reading romance since I was a little kid. I was probably 11 or 12 when I picked up my first romance novel. So it's been in my blood. I found male romance around 2006, I want to say. And so it immediately, I connected with it. And when I started writing in 2007, that was what I wrote. It just felt like it felt right. And it's been right up. Now I'm on my 70th book. So
Wow.
Just getting ready to release my 70th book. So it's just what I do. It's like what I live and breathe, and it comes naturally to me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had some element of romance in my action adventure books, but it was tiny. It was more like 3% romance, 97% kick butt, because people can't kick butt all the time. You have to have some relationships, but it was never the focus. With the Morgan Bryce stuff, it's more 50% action, 50% kissing. And then that's kind of fun getting to explore the internal thoughts and insecurities and desires of the main characters in a way you don't get to when you're writing action adventure, where it's all about who's shooting whom.
That's still fun though.
It is.
Yeah.
But you get more leeway to do that with romance than you do in other genres. And I also write male romance, and I love the hurt comfort piece of it, where that's my favorite trope, where people, you know, come and help each other out and save each other, and leads to a lot of mushiness. So yeah, that's why romance for me. But now let's talk about your particular flavor of paranormal. There's all kinds of stuff. There's shifters and vampires and monsters and zombies and time travel and all kinds of stuff. So what are your flavors of paranormal? Patricia?
I started out this series thinking I'm going to write a vampire book. So I picked out a vampire and wrote him. And then I gave him a shifter as a mate who turns out to be a unicorn. We don't know that until the end of the first book, but I also threw in a witch, and then suddenly werewolves appeared. So I ended up with this town, this little tiny town full of all these paranormal creatures. And one of my main characters, my shifter, he didn't even know that he was a shifter. So I threw in everything I could think of. I threw in ghosts and ghouls, and it just has expanded into this massive town of weirdos. And it's amazing and fun and crazy, and my readers love it. And that's what it is. So I don't think I have a particular flavor. It's a whole melting pot of fun, crazy, paranormal creatures.
Okay. Jenny.
You forgot me on the last question.
I'm sorry.
So it's okay. I'll answer both, and I hope I can remember both. Okay, so
romance.
Why romance and why the creatures I use, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why romance? Unlike a lot of people, I wasn't a very big romance reader, but a lot of what I read always had the elements in it. And I just think it's part of life. I mean, we wouldn't be here if there wasn't romance. None of us would exist. The species wouldn't have made it. So I just think and I think it gives you three-dimensional characters. I've never understood why any genre wants to say, no, you can't have kissing. Everybody, it's one of our prime motivators. So to me, it makes the characters well-rounded. I no more than 50% romance for the most part, because I am writing other genres, but I've got romance in almost everything. It may not be, like you said, it might be 3%, it might be 50%, but it's up there because depending on the length of the story and who's doing what and so forth. As for why I use what creatures, I use them all. It depends on the story. For my Happy Acres series, it's ghosts and some very scary ghosts that would border on demonic. For Plush Life, which is romantic suspense, there's a voodoo element. So you're not really sure, is it really voodoo? Is it magic, or is the voodoo queen fooling people? And in the Necropolis Enforcement Files series, I use every creature known and then some, and I'm like scouring the planet for all the creatures. So I use them all because I think they all deserve their shot.
Very good. Yeah, there's a real high that comes from discovering a monster in somebody's mythology that you haven't seen before. I mean, maybe it's familiar to somebody over there, but it's not familiar here. And so that's like, oh, I found a new one. How can I use it? That's kind of fun. So now I mentioned that my big jam is Heart Comfort. There are a lot of others that I like as well. But what are some of your go-to tropes? BL?
I tend to go to Hurt Comfort also. I really do like that.
Yes.
I can't help it. And I love, like with the paranormal too, I really like the conflict of they go into, like, say they go into a haunted house together, and even though they're working together, something happens to one of them, and then they maybe have to make a choice of, do they do this or I like that. I like that whole conflict of, do you risk blowing it and maybe you can't save the day to save your partner, or do you save the day, or I love that.
Very cool. Jeannie?
I tend to mostly use witches right now. I haven't shifted into shifters, so I suspect they're going to invest my world at some point. I think that for me, the really theme that I sort of gravitate to is finding your inner strength, and that you're stronger than you know. And sometimes that in my stories, especially my Witches Walk Haven Harbor series, that's, you know, you're strong enough to stand up to the fact that you have a gift, or you're strong enough to stand up to the fact that people either don't believe it or challenge it. And so for me, that's one that I really focus on a lot, is being stronger than you know. And also the whole, I love the lovers who will stand toe to toe with each other, and, you know, they sort of match each other where they are, but they also are willing to stand up to each other. So that's another big theme I use, I guess.
Very
Did
cool.
that
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Ginny.
I think I, from a romance side, I'm kind of a slave to the love triangle. I just ran through my catalog. It's like, yeah, a lot of times it's not as strong a love triangle as it's, sometimes I do like the false love triangle, but really that's probably my romantic trope is that from a paranormal standpoint, mostly it's that the paranormal, there's at least half the paranormal that are good, not it's not all evil, it's not all scary. Some of these creatures or people are absolutely fighting on the side of right. So that is consistent throughout.
Okay. How about you, Patricia?
I've always written mystery, so all of my paranormal has an element of mystery. Action adventure is also my thing. I've written tons and tons of special agents and FBI and ATF and that kind of thing. So that's just fun for me. I incorporated that into my paranormal stuff. And, you know, there's always a case that they have to solve. There's always bad guys. There's always good guys. There's always car chases and fights. And, you know, when you've got a paranormal element, you know, you bring in all the lightning and the witchery, and it's just super fun. So, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, what's the most unusual otherworldly creature that you've either used? Doesn't have to be a romantic partner, could just be the bad guy or a helper or whatever, but what's the most unusual creature that you've used, and how did you use them? Jeannie?
Oh gosh, I guess probably the most unusual one I did was, and it doesn't seem unusual in context with y'all, because I know what y'all write, was a trapped demon, and that was in one of the Canaan Castle stories that connect to my Haven Harbor witches. But I always love reading all the great paranormal creatures that everybody comes up with, and I end up coming up with all sorts of unusual creatures, but that's in my space adventure rather than the paranormal. So
Nice. BL, how about you?
Well, my last one, I used shadow people because I'm so fascinated by them, but I'm also really horrified by them. Like, it's something I hope I never experience. But then I tied that in with, I kind of wanted it where they were just kind of being controlled by something else. So I threw a wraith in there that it's really him that's doing all this stuff. And it was a lot of fun. Shadow people were really fun to write, but yeah, they're creepy.
seriously.
Yeah. Ginny and Fred. We have the
Fluffy
cat
Death
appearance.
says hi. This is Fluffy Death. She says hi. I'm trying to think. Most of the really bizarre ones are coming in the next Acropolis Enforcement Files and Night Music. I have a lot, including the demons that tickle you to death, which is horrifying. It's a horrible way to go, right?
Yes.
The waves that actually are the waves that are actually made of teeth and stuff like that. So that's some horrific fun coming up. And then in one of my short stories in my collection, The Disciple and Other Stories of the Paranormal, the Devil's Daughter's in there, and it was fun doing her as a very typical daughter, as opposed to some evil manifestation. So I kind of like taking the creepy ones and either making them creepier or making you look at them in a different manner. Like I have a snake demon in the Night Beat, and he's just a lesser demon trying to get by on the human plane. So, and I'm terrified of snakes. So for me, anything that's a snake, that was the scariest thing I wrote.
Patricia.
I don't know. There's no rules with anything that I write. So everything that I've done has been, things that have come out of my own head. I've written a lot of weird shifters. I mean, I've got a sheriff's deputy who's a hedgehog, and she's just amazing. She's this little round lady, and she's got spiky hair, and when she shifts, she turns into a hedgehog. So I've got this group of what I call the champions, which are basically unicorns that are eunuchs. They're so dark that they're like blue. That's how dark their skin is. They breathe fire. They can fly. They're like Pegasus. They've got like Pegasus wings. I mean, I just make this stuff up. It just comes off the top of my head. It's just like whatever. And my readers seem to love it. It's just amazing to explore this. It's fun. And I also have snakes, by the way. I have some cobras. My shifters are weird. I've got some bugs and some things as small as ants and things as large as dragons. So yeah.
I think the weirdest ones I used a Dokaibi, which is a Korean goblin in Legacy. And that was fun because it was something a little fresh. Thank you. It was fresh, and it was just I took some liberties with it, of course, which is what you have to do to get some of these things to fit in your story. But it was fun to come at something that I hadn't seen before. And then in one that I just finished that will be coming out next year, I've got a medium who falls in love with a ghost. And so working out the mechanics for ghost sex was kind of challenging, but we got there.
I bet.
And it had a very happy ending for everybody involved. So, you just have to figure out how to make it work when one person doesn't have a body. Which leads to another question. What did you say, Jeannie?
Challenge, but it can be overcome.
Anything can be overcome with enough, inspiration. So how does magic work in your world? Jeannie?
Well, I've got two different worlds where I use magic. One is an urban fantasy, and then one is the paranormal romance series, the Witch's Walk paranormal romance series. Both magic series are pretty sort of typical Celtic nature magic, having to do with energy flow and the elemental magic of that kind. That's really tied to nature. So it's not very out there. It's sort of pretty much the traditional Celtic pattern.
Okay. Patricia. Gosh, I mean, everything in my world is magic. I have, when they shift, they sparkle, because they're unicorns. When my witch appears on the scene, he is an old man who leans on a big staff, and when he wants to do magic, then he just lifts that staff and lightning shoots out of it, and he shoots out these giant bowling ball sized, spheres of light that put holes in bad werewolves, So, there's always purple lightning flying around everywhere. There's, I've got guardians who guard the prince, who's a little tiny unicorn, and they also, I mean, it's just nuts. So they've got their own forms of magic. They create domes that sparkle and protect my prince. So I throw, it's like a big melting pot. Like I said, I just throw whatever in there and it works.
Nice. Jenny.
It depends on the stuff in the Happy Acres. They're ghosts, so they can do what ghosts can do and can't do, what ghosts can't do. And it's just the more powerful the ghost, the more things it can or can't do. Most, like I mentioned in Plush Life, it's voodoo. And so is the voodoo magic really magic, or is it just that this woman is so aware of psychology that she can influence people into her belief system? And she's not an evil, by the way. She is a supporting character who helps the hero and heroine to overcome the bad guys. And then in the Necropolis Enforcement Files series, there isn't real. the only magic there is magic that the witches, the warlocks, or anyone else with that kind of bent are due. Like, you know, Shakespeare is creating spells for them to use, and then everybody can chant, but most of the time the creatures can only do what they can do. So vampires can only work the night beat because they are they need to go get out of the sunlight. And werewolves don't really like to take baths, but they will because they're dogs, you know, they're canines. So I try to keep it limited to what each creature can do and not go beyond that.
Okay. BL?
Well, in Tutu, he's a demon hunter, but he's the ancient god, the Egyptian god Tutu, inhabiting, like sharing a body with a human. And so when he channels Tutu, when he's in control, his tattoos glow, you know, so you know that he's in charge. He doesn't really have magic, but he's powerful, I guess you'd say. In my Gargoyles series, they were brought to life by sort of a combination of rituals that gave them life. My Ghost series, the ghosts are, you know, the ghosts are ghosts, but some are more powerful, you know, some are more, I guess you'd say, more dark, more evil. They can do, you know, they want to hurt you where others don't. They just want to avoid you. But the ghost hunters themselves use sigils and different things like that to, you know, they sage, they do all sorts of things to protect themselves from the ghost. So.
Okay. Now, does using magic and paranormal elements make any part of writing romance harder or easier, Jeannie? Or change how you come at the story from a non-paranormal side?
I think it changes how you come at the story, because if you're using romance with defense element, that's grounded in reality, and everybody knows a gun is a gun is a gun. But when you're writing with paranormal elements, I think it makes it fun, challenging, but fun, because everybody approaches and views magic a different way. Like Patricia was saying, you know, her creatures can do anything. Well, how does the human side of whoever is in the protagonist role react to that? And when you have magic
other condition other than
that you're setting up system,
That's loud. Oh, there we go. Okay.
So when you have a system where you've got magic set up as part of your world and your characters are reacting to that, you have to have the level of they're reacting to the magic. They're also attracted to each other and reacting to each other. And sometimes you as the writer are playing it as one of the people doesn't know magic exists, and this is their introduction to magic, and how are they going to react to this person they're attracted to, and they find out they're a witch, or they're, they've got the ghostly lover or whatever. How do you react to that? So for me, it makes it more fun. It adds a layer of challenge and fun to it. And one of the things like I love about your book, Scale, is that you bring in several different traditions. So sometimes you have traditions reacting against each other. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought that was pretty interesting. But I think I just think it adds a layer of challenge as a writer, but fun. I mean, Patricia was saying how much fun she had doing, all the things she does. And I think that it brings a lot of, you have to think it through a lot, but it's fun. It's just huge piles of fun.
Okay. Jenny?
I'm kind of with Jeannie in that it's a lot of fun. I don't, in the Night Beat, I have kind of the reverse. The POV character, it's a first person series, is not the human. It's my undercover police officer is also an undercover werewolf. And there is a human there, but there's a giant twist that I'm not going to give away.
Yay.
So yeah, right. I'm trying to think, for the most part, when I write it, it's just, I don't have a lot of, oh my gosh, it's magic going on with the characters. It's just kind of, that's the world. There's this in the Happy Acres Haunted Hotel for Active Seniors. It's just, this is, it tells you in the title, right? I mean, very quickly it's established there were ghosts. They're breaking in a new resident, and he just rolls with it. You know, I mean, that's part of like, how are you going to survive here? Well, you'd better roll with the fact that it's ghost roll call now. So I guess most of my humans, I put them down to, they are open to it and just rolling in with it. I don't really deal a lot, or I haven't yet, I guess I should say, with the, oh my gosh, it's magic. When my humans are discovering it, they're excited, kind of like I feel like I would be if it's like, oh my gosh, that's really a real werewolf and it's on my side. Awesome, right? As opposed to, eek, it's a werewolf. So I think that for me and the way I do it, all my humans just roll with it because they think this is the most awesome thing in the world.
Nice. BL?
I'm similar. Most of my worlds, they're just the human side are very accepting. They don't really question it. They may not like it always, but you know, they roll with it. Same as Jenny. I don't know what I want to say.
Your stuff is awesome, and
yeah,
everyone should
exactly.
It works. It works.
Yeah.
You can skip me. I lost my train of thought.
Okay. Patricia, what you? Patricia?
Me? Oh, okay. For me, it gives me license to do whatever the heck I want. It's, you know, it's just, there are no rules, which is why I love paranormal. I found this, I mean, 10 years, 12 years into writing, I have found this new outlet where there are no rules. I don't have to write with an outline because I can make mistakes and then turn it into magic, you know, and my betas will point something out to me and go, what the hell was this? And I go back and clean it up and go, well, that was magic. I mean, don't you know this? This is magic. So, you know, you can just do with it what you want. You have license to really play with it, to explore, to create a world where, you know, where whatever's going on. And my humans don't really interact. I mean, they do, but it's kind of off the page. It's like, we know they're having sex, but we don't really explore them because we're more focused on this other world that we've created. So there aren't a lot of human interactions that are really human like they're not really interacting with my people. We know that they're happening, that they're living in this town with humans, but everybody else, all of my characters are really focused on their own little world, which is the paranormal world.
Okay. So when it comes to the paranormal aspect, or really the books themselves, what's your research process? And if you don't think of it as research, where do you find your inspirations? BL?
I watch a lot of paranormal, you know, like the live, like Paranormal Caught on Camera, that kind of thing. And I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook where people just share paranormal experiences. And I'm just fascinated by that. I don't have the desire to actually experience it, but I enjoy hearing other people's experience. And I use that a lot. But I do research, like if it's like sigils or, you know what I mean? Different things like that. I do research it because I don't want to get it wrong, or different symbols, that type of thing. I mean, you know, it's all paranormal, and some of it is maybe not based in fact, but you know, you still can research it and kind of get an idea for how people expect it, I guess. So.
Okay. Jenny?
I do an almost embarrassing amount of research. And, you know, people are like, there's no research in this. Oh, yeah, there really is. I research settings quite a lot. I research pretty much whatever I'm writing, there's going to be some level of research in it. So when it's paranormal, I'm researching things like the list of fallen angels and the demon kings and you know, all these horrible creatures of exist that have to be living on the plane of the in Necropolis Enforcement. There are planes of existence, and the plane of the fantastic is terrifying, and that's where all the I had to come up with some really scary stuff. So I went through, you know, the scariest thing from each country, and that's where that tickle monster comes from. There is nothing worse, and all these other things. So I do a lot of research so I can go back, you know, what are the elements and things like that. And so I'm not using the same character or the same traits over and over and over again in what my characters in Necropolis Enforcement, they have to avert Armageddon every time they're walking out the door. So it can't be the same Armageddon. It has to be a different Armageddon. That requires a lot of research, and just, you know, location. For this actually isn't paranormal in that sense, but I for book 13 in my Alien series, I have it set at this creepy, real creepy former asylum. And when my editor read it, she goes, "This just seems over the top." I'm like, "This place is real and I'm downplaying it." And she's like, "Oh my God, really?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, ghost hunters went and they ran. They were so frightened." She's like, "Then play it up more." And make sure you give the reference. So so far more research than, you know, than it may warrant, but I'm going to do it anyway, because research is the fun part of the job.
This is true. This is true. I mean, I love ghost stories and stories about hauntings and urban legends that are located, that are from the general area where the story's set, so that it makes the story really rooted in that area, and the area becomes a character. So the story couldn't happen the same way somewhere else. I really love looking into that. I watch the ghost hunter shows too. I've loved scary supernatural stuff since I was a kid. I'm a huge Supernatural fan for the TV show. And between a very, let's call it eclectic library, and a rather interesting search history, I'm sure if anything unfortunate ever happens, I can just hear the news anchor going, "Police found a witchy library in her office. We're examining," you know, I mean, this is just not going to look good if something goes bloody, especially those books on, you know, poisons and
yeah,
how to kill people.
Different ways to kill people.
Yeah, but doesn't everybody have those? I mean, really. So, but I agree that, yeah, the research is a lot of the fun, because that's where the aha moments come from. At least for me, when I get stuck, if I go out and research some more, I'll find something that's even better than anything I could have made up, and it's like grounded in fact. And that's just such a great day. How about you, Patricia? Go ahead.
Go ahead, okay. Well, it's just that road trips are so much fun too, you know.
Always.
We're looking at, you know, you could leave a body over there and nobody would ever find it. Jeanne teaches body disposal class, and so it's really enlightening to go on a road trip with her, as I have many times, and I'm still here.
She's one of the lucky ones.
That's right. How about you, Patricia?
For me, I've researched the silliest things. These books are just filled with silliness. So, for example, my vampire brings a sandwich to his boyfriend, and they start talking about the history of the Earl of Sandwich, because of course my vampire has met him and screwed him, actually, you know. It just silly things like this. And I researched J. Edgar Hoover, because he really didn't have a heart attack and die. He was killed by vampires, and the FBI covered it up.
He so deserved that. He so deserved that.
Right.
He did.
I researched the Clydesdales, because did you know that the Clydesdales are actually shifters? So yeah, right. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing. I mean, it's like, and my brain is, you know, a squirrel too, you know, in that it's bizarre. This whole thing is bizarre, which is why I'm having so much fun with it.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And Jeannie, really get to answer the question. So what do you think?
Well, like you, Gail, I have an extensive library. I've been reading about witchy things since I could read. And, you know, some of the stuff, I have to confess, you just have to read like the Old Testament, and you can find some really scary shit. And road trips, those are so wonderful because I have taken some mini wild and crazy road trips, and sometimes those little stops in the randomest gift shop, you find some local legend, like you're talking about, Gail, and you're like, what if? And there's so many great myths and legends and so many great books on myth and legend, and of course there are the murder, death, kill books too in my library, which would probably give any investigator. But I think that the research part, like you said, is, and like we all said, it's just so much fun. And sometimes the hardest thing is to weed out which idea is best, because you've got all these different. You're like, oh, I could use that. Oh, I could use that. And then you're like, oh, but that's too much. That's the kitchen sink. I have to pare down a little bit. But
Yeah,
yeah,
stop when you've got enough. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And but I think that you also get, I love the thing that you're talking about, Patricia, where you get to sort of research something that's a little not exactly magical, but then you're going to make it magical. So you have this fun little bit of research where you go and look at these things and you go, I could use that.
Yeah.
Clydesdales. Yeah, baby.
Well, and you're talking about road trips, Jeannie, and I always come back to what Neil Gaiman said in American Gods, where he makes the observation that wherever people have sensed a place of power, they have either built a shrine or a roadside attraction. And if you want to find some of the weirdest stuff in the world, those roadside attractions on those little byways are where you're going to find the weirdest stuff ever. And you're just going, oh, yeah, come on, give it to me.
South of the border.
Yes.
There's nothing like south of the border.
You never know what you're going to find in one of those. Yeah, this is true. Well, folks, believe it or not, as usual, we have blown through our time. So before we end up, I want everybody to go around and please tell us what is your newest, most recent, upcoming book, whatever you want to share, and also where to find you on social media. So I'm going to go in reverse this time and start with Patricia.
My most recent one is the one I'm writing right now, which is the final book in the Prosper Woods Chronicles series. It's called True Order. You can find it on Amazon for pre-order. You can find me on Facebook all the time, most of the time, as Patricia Logan. You can find me on Instagram as author Patricia Logan, where I post lots of fun things, lots of cartoons, lots of gorgeous men and book covers and goodies like that. I'm on Twitter, but I don't use it. So I don't even use it. So there's no reason to point it out.
Okay. Jeannie.
Well, you can find me at jeannieadams.com. You can find me on the hive of scum and villainy that is Twitter most of the time. You can find me on Facebook fairly regularly. I love Instagram because I like to take pictures of Scotland, which is where I'm at now. And obviously you can find me here at ConTinual a lot too.
Very nice. BL.
I actually just finished, well, I just released, like I said, Ghost Shadow, which is a ghost book. But I just started writing a second book that's about a vampire. So I'm excited about that, but I just like barely started it. You can find me, I'm always on Facebook, BL Maxwell on Facebook. And then I'm on TikTok now too, which is kind of fun. And, you know, everywhere else, Instagram, not really on Twitter, but yeah.
Okay. Jenny.
www.ginnykoch.com is my website. You can find pretty much everything, but I'm on Facebook all the time. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on Pinterest. It says I'm on Instagram, but I'm really not. Stop sending me messages because I'm never going to see them. And my most recent releases are short stories and anthologies. I have Saving Sally Ruth, which is a ghost story in the Derelict anthology about a ghost spaceship. And I have another story coming out in Gunfight on Europa Station anthology from Baen Books, and that's releasing in just about a week and a half, 2 weeks max. And then I will have The Reinvented Heart, which is coming out in February. And that is basically, in my viewpoint, it was science fiction romance, but it's examining what makes families. And then somewhere in between now and then, Silence in the City is going to come out, and I have a story in there as well.
Cool. Well, I'm pretty easy to find as gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And of course, here at ConTinual, I have 3 different reader groups, well, 2 reader groups and a supernatural group. So I'm pretty easy to find there too. As far as new stuff coming out, we've got Trash and Treasure out right now for pre-order, and it'll come out at the end of the month, but that is a possum shifter and a raccoon shifter, and it's part of the Fox Hollow series. And then Jeannie and I are in a Shared Worlds collection for New Year's, and that is Ring in the New at Canham Castle, which will be out at the end of the year, and it's a fictitious castle in a fictitious town in England that we've revisited now 3 times for 3 different holidays. And so you've got a bunch of authors who are all writing in the same space at the same time for the same holiday event and trying not to have their characters trip over each other, but it's really fun.
It's very
so. Thank you to all of you for being wonderful panelists tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more romance coming up here on ConTinual, so we'll see you online.